Hi, welcome to the show. My name is Jesse Goldberg, and our special guest today is Jeff Syracuse, who has Metro Council member. Is that what you call it?
Yeah, council member.
Council member from District 15. Yeah. And there's like 40 of you guys, right? 35 and 5.
35 districts, 40 total council members, right?
Right.
Yeah.
So let's just start with who you are, where you're from.
Sure. Originally, I was born in Buffalo, but my father was Army. So
let's get this straight.
So yeah.
Jeff Syracuse from Buffalo.
Yes, I get that a lot.
New Yorkers.
Can be a little confusing, right? Yeah, for sure. There's a couple good stories on that, of course. But
did you grow up in Buffalo?
My dad was Army, so I was 6 years old when we left. So I only remember a couple of big snowstorms, right? And so we spent a little bit of time in St. Louis, and then I primarily grew up in Atlanta. He was stationed at Fort McPherson, just south of Atlanta, and so I grew up there. And ultimately, that's what brought me to Nashville here. Stayed down south. Went to MTSU and got my job at BMI, and I'm still at the company 24 years later.
So was that your first real job, BMI?
Yeah, well, during college, I also managed a Blockbuster Video, which,
I always wanted to work at a video store.
Yeah.
Now they're not there anymore.
In fact, that may be my Halloween costume in a couple of days, because I recently found my manager tag, and so all you got to do is khakis, a blue shirt,
and my tag. Which Blockbuster were you at?
It was down in Atlanta. It was off of Highway 41 was my store. And it taught me a lot as a manager of a store, maintenance of employees. And,
I always wanted to work in either a record store or a video store.
Yeah, absolutely.
And now that I never got the chance.
Oh, right, because when I was working there, it was transitioning from VHS to DVDs, right?
Oh, really?
And so, look at us now. It was totally obsolete business.
I had a friend who had a video store on Long Island, and he had to pay like $80 or $70 per video for VHS videos.
Right.
Now you can't even get rid of them for a quarter.
No,
so
that's true, right? Yeah.
Except the horror movies, they're still worth something.
And Be Kind, Rewind. Remember that? Yeah.
Right. Anyway, so you came that when how long you been in Nashville?
About 25 years. Yeah.
And how long you been a council member?
I was first elected in 2015 and then re-elected in 2019. So I've got about, 10 or so months left in my term.
And you're still eligible to be an at-large member?
So I'm going to run for one of the at-large positions. That's
right.
One of the 5 countywide, because you're term limited, just like whether it's president or mayor or governor
right.
or whatever, you can do 2 4-year terms. So I've done that in this seat, so I can't run for a 3rd consecutive term, but I am going to run for one of the at-large
Can you run
seats.
for a 3rd term if you skip a term?
Yes, and that's happened before, for sure. If somebody does their 8 years and just skips a term, and they want to come back and the community wants them back, then yes, they can run again.
What about you move to a different district? What if you're in District 15 and all of a sudden you move to 14?
You have to at least live in that district, I think it's only 6 months, which is not a whole lot of time to really get your arms around your neighborhoods and your business community and whatnot. But that's the law. That's 6 months and you're in.
I liked our councilman, but she's not there anymore, Sherry Weiner.
Yeah, Sherry's a friend. Yeah, absolutely. Yeah.
She was a really good council person.
Yeah, she's sharp, man. I learned a lot from her. Yeah.
She got a high school built and everything.
Yeah, right.
And a new one in Bellevue.
Right.
So,
yeah.
She was good. Yeah. Anyway, so tell me about the BMI stuff. What do you do at BMI?
I lead a small but mighty team of 4 that does all the radio and television stations in the U.S. Just like any other business that has to have a public performance license to operate, so do radio and television stations. So every single radio and television station, we manage those relationships, and as stations sell, we have to make sure that the new owner gets the license. So our job is to help maintain that revenue that comes in that ultimately helps pay songwriters. And then
so you're on the side where you have to collect from the radio stations and the TV stations and that kind of thing.
Yeah, I don't actually collect the dollars. I'm not in the collections department, but I'm the one that has the relationships with the broadcasters and
you're not the one with the baseball bat.
Yeah, right, exactly. Yeah, right. But if we're doing our job, then the collections department shouldn't have to do a lot of work themselves, right?
All right. So TV stations, what percentage of their revenue do they have to pay for BMI?
Television stations are interesting because it's actually based on an industry-wide allocation that's partially based on Nielsen ratings. So if you're a commercial television station, depending on your market share and whatnot within that market, and so there's a whole pie, and then per market there's a smaller pie, and then within each of those stations in a market, they get a slice. So
But what about, let's take a big station like NBC or something like
sure. Well, they get a bigger chunk of that pie ultimately.
that. But is there a certain percentage,
yeah.
like 1%, 2%?
It's there's nothing that's a cookie cutter for the pie, so to speak.
Would CBS, NBC, and ABC pay the same thing?
The affiliates in each market would be based on their Nielsen ratings and the market share that they have. So obviously, like a top 10 market is going to not pay or will pay more than a smaller market. Or
Every
whatnot.
affiliate pays separately? Is there a big one that just NBC pays?
Well, we do have network agreements with the big three: ABC, CBS,
Right.
and ABC. And so, of course, there's three types of programming, right? There's the network programming, there's syndicated, and there's local. And so, for those that are that are the CBS, NBC, ABC affiliates, we do have an agreement that basically carves out that programming because we have network programming that covers it. So then they just have to report to us their syndicated and local programming so we can see what music they're using and ensure that those songwriters and
So
composers get paid.
is there a log for every show that's on the major networks?
In fact, that was my very first full-time job at BMI, was processing cue sheets for television stations.
Are they still doing that?
Yeah. Well, no, not anymore. We're not processing paper cue sheets anymore.
They just-
I mean, a lot has happened in my 24 years at the company, right? And that's been obviously a tech efficiency.
So how does it work
Yeah.
if I have a song on a show,
Yeah.
a variety show? Say I don't have variety shows anymore, but
Right.
say a variety show sings one of my songs. How much am I getting?
There's that gets a little more complicated then about how you take the dollars and how it's paid out. But certainly as an affiliate of BMI, as a songwriter composer, one of the things that you really need to be able to do is let us or ASCAP or CSAC know, whoever your PRO is, that hey, look, I got a song played on this show. Or
Yeah, but I thought you said they were all logged in or something like that.
Well, if you're an ABC, CBS, and NBC affiliate, then yes, those stations have to give us their syndicated and local programming. We have, this gets into probably another 2-hour conversation.
That's all right, keep going.
About
It's interesting.
how long or how much that we monitor, whether it's radio or television airplay, and how we determine that based on, in the charts and all that. It gets a little bit complicated to say the least about how all that monitoring occurs. And of course, there's, I think 70 to 80 different license types that we have, from the digital to the brick and mortar to the radio, the television stations. That's what we
Ralph
do.
Murphy passed away, a while ago, right?
Yeah.
But he was a guest on the show frequently.
Yeah.
And he'd always say, ASCAP is better than BMI.
Yeah, it's.
If you're not I'm going to get into that.
Talk to 10 different people, you'll get 10 different responses. At the end of the day, I mean, we're all in the same business to support the creatives.
Right.
And so it's who you have a good relationship with that understands your career and what you're trying to do as a songwriter or composer, and you're getting some support. That's what
I've always heard that BMI was better for TV and movies, and then ASCAP was better for something else. I don't know.
I don't have any data on that either way.
That's just
But like I say, it's kind of like when people say, I'm going to send my kid to this because this is a better school. It's like, well, how engaged are you, with your school, or how engaged are you with your carear? I mean,
Well, let's get this before we go into the other stuff. Let's get to something about me for a second.
Sure.
All right. So I have millions of views on YouTube.
Right.
Millions of views. I was telling you before the show.
Right, yeah.
Millions of views on YouTube, and I'm trying to get paid from ASCAP, right?
Right, yeah.
And I have to have this ISRC codes on these things.
Yeah.
And I just submitted it to it.
Right.
So what's the best way for somebody who has got a lot of views on YouTube to for BMI to get BMI to notice what's going on?
Sure. This is why it's critical to have that relationship with somebody in the creative department, or what we used to call our writer-publisher relations department, because they need to know you. They need to know where your music is being played. They need to know how to support you. So having that one-on-one relationship with somebody there is critical, because then you can email them, let's just say, or call them up and say, hey, I just found out my song's being played on this show, and look, so far it has 1 million views. It's like, how does that translate to me getting paid? So yeah, it's important that you basically have some oversight over us to make sure that we are monitoring
So I got
everything.
to form a relationship with somebody from ASCAP.
Absolutely, yeah.
And I have no relationship with
Right.
anybody.
Well, there you go. So that's your homework.
So if I wanted to switch, do people switch back and forth to BMI? And
it does
ASCAP?
happen. Sure, absolutely.
So what happens
Yeah.
to if I wanted to switch? What would I do? Just
there's a
do I take all the stuff that I have?
There's a
that
number
goes
of
over there?
factors. I'll give you an example of Billy Joel, right? When he first started out his career, he was BMI. And when he became really big, he switched to ASCAP. And so there's certain stuff that I think still is with BMI, but his later stuff, or I guess,
So he gets checks
mid
from
70s or
everybody.
so, I think so. But there's examples of that, whether per the deal, whatever you negotiate, that you could pick up your whole catalog and move it, or you can leave some, or set up a new publisher and start fresh.
Yeah.
You can do it all sorts of different ways.
I want to get paid from all these millions of views.
Absolutely, right, yes. I want you to get paid too.
I need some kind of a personal relationship with somebody from ASCAP.
You do, absolutely, yes.
So I'm going to call him on the phone and say, hey, I need a personal relationship with you.
And tell them about your career. So I get these questions a lot from songwriters, and I tell them, well, I'm in the side of the business that pulls the money in, but let me connect you with somebody down there, and these are the questions you should ask them, and engage in conversations. Say, this is the kind of songwriter I am. This is where I'd like to see my music. This is, I would like to be, play these places and whatnot. And our creative department, and the same thing with ASCAP, they should have those relationships with the publishers, with the managers, with the promoters and all that, to basically help you build your career.
Well, maybe I'll call the people in Nashville instead of talking to the ones in New York. The ones in New York aren't very, very friendly.
Well, they're just down the street, so yeah, I would say call the ASCAP.
All right, before we get to this other stuff,
sure.
There's one more thing. Do you still guys make the BMI Music World magazine? You still have that? Is that
I think it's just digital now.
Just digital?
If anything, yeah, I don't think that we printed anymore.
I have a lot of them.
Yeah, yeah.
Okay, let's get to this other topics, like citywide topics.
Sure, absolutely.
And it's mainly about, there's a concern that Nashville's getting so big, and you see the rents are like $1,500 a month.
That's
how
cheap.
Could a starving, how could a songwriter come to Nashville now, like I did, a long time ago? My first apartment was $375. That was it.
Right.
And so how can anybody survive? How can you promote creativity when nobody can come here and do that?
It's a fundamental problem that we're having. That dream of a songwriter or a musician coming here to be successful, that's part of our DNA, and if we lose that, we've lost a big part of who Nashville is. Affordable housing is so difficult, and it obviously impacts everybody, whether it's teachers, nurses, first responders, creatives, of course. So how do we help ensure that creatives specifically have affordable housing? At the end of the day, one of the things I'm trying to do is forge a more sustainable private-public partnership so that the industry can be engaged with government on how they can help together to support their own.
Do they really care anymore? It seems like it's a lot. I remember the old reputation of, you walk down Music Row and you go walk in little houses and stuff like that, and you're kind of welcomed in and let's hear what you got.
Yeah.
And it's really not like that anymore. It's more like, it is in like New York. You go in, hey, what are you doing here?
Yeah, right.
You got an appointment, get out of here.
That has been one of our troubles and challenges also. Music Row used to be a functional neighborhood, right? And to some extent it is, of course. Obviously I work at BMI, there's ASCAP across the street, CSAC down the way, there's the publishers and the labels or whatnot, but what's missing and what's being steamrolled over is the affordability of somebody to live on that functional neighborhood. And when we were going through the battle of saving Studio A and then more broadly saving Music Row, it was a difficult conversation about, well, what are we saving? Are we saving that building because songwriters used to write hits in that building when somebody has owned that building for, let's say, even a couple generations and they're ready to sell? They have a right to sell. It's their building that, they're going to create generational wealth for their kids, their grandkids. But what happened in that building was culturally critical to Nashville. And this is more about the venues, the local independent venues, that we have to find a way that these venues can continue to operate in this city.
You're talking about some music venues?
Our local independent venues, but from a broader perspective, it's about culture. And we have to start valuing culture better and codifying what it means to this city. We're becoming a victim of our own success. As rapid growth and development have happened or continue to happen in the city, we're starting to steamroll over the places that have made Nashville what it is. I mean, just recently we heard about 3rd and Lindsley's going to have to go away because it's going to be a 400-unit apartment complex.
I didn't know that.
Yeah, that place has been there for over 30 years. It's a critical place. These are incubators of talent. This is where songwriters and musicians hone their craft take it on the road. But if you don't have these local independent places, what have you got? My fear is that this kind of bad news there's more to come. So what I've done on council, specific to the venues, but like I say, it can be applied more broadly to ensuring that we codify the value of culture. But for me, the venues are the ground zero discussion of this, is that we have a consultant now. I know it sounds very political, right? We're getting on a consultant, but it is important to have subject matter experts that understand how this stuff works, who are going to come and help us try to evaluate the situation, understand better that these venue owners, they don't own the buildings, so they're beholden to their landlords. And if the landlord decides, I'm done, I'm out, I'm going to make a buck and go retire, well, where does the venue go? Well, we have to find a way to honor the landlord that is going to be made whole, hopefully, but also understand that there's a critical cultural piece of Nashville in there.
Buildings cost a fortune now, and they're worth a fortune.
So Third and Lindsay's not going to be able to go down the street and just set up shop and operate. Like
right.
Where? The rent would be double. I mean, they need sizable space. So it's frustrating. But we need tools, policies, and programs to help support. And it's not just about the ones that we have now or the ones that we've lost, but culture means that we have to establish what that value is, so that as we continue to grow, that we can embed culture in our continued growth and development.
You said you were from Atlanta. Oh, you grew up in Atlanta,
I grew
right?
up there, yeah.
Didn't this happen in Atlanta?
Oh, sure. Yeah, I mean, I remember.
Is this exactly what happened?
When I was managing my Blockbuster Video, that's when the Olympics came, right? And then Atlanta just blew up, right? And the same kind of thing has happened there. And we're not unique in a way that this kind of thing is only happening to us. Austin is going through the same thing. We look at Austin a lot of times as one of our peer and aspirational cities. I mean, London, the Cavern Club, where the Beatles got started. There was a possibility that we could have lost the Cavern Club, but some altruistic person, I think within the family, either Lennon or McCartney, came in and helped save that venue. Gosh, can you imagine losing that? That's world history now at this point, right?
Yeah.
So we've got to figure out how culture.
I'm a big Beatles guy.
Oh, absolutely. Well, you heard about the songwriting competition that just came here. One of the coolest things that I've ever been involved with. It supported mental health awareness for artists, especially coming back out of the pandemic. And this was called Liverpool to Nashville. It was an international songwriting competition, and there was over 20,000 song submissions from about 30 different countries. And everybody who submitted a song got a life coach or a psychologist in their hometown. And about 4,000 of those 20,000 took advantage of that. And so the finals were held on was it October 9th, I think it was?
John Lennon's birthday.
Sunday the 9th, which is John Lennon's birthday.
Right.
And so the winner then was flown back to the Cavern Club where they get to play there, where the Beatles got their start.
Oh, wow. How
so
come I guess I don't pay attention to anything
it was
anymore.
an awesome thing to be part of. And of course, what it was about was supporting the mental health of creatives. One more thing that we're struggling with, right? We've got to show value to the
people are kind of like mentally gone to begin with. So
well, that's why they write great songs. But I mean, that's just one more thing. As a community, as a society, we've got to value what creatives do, not just for our economic impact, which it's about a $3 billion economic impact for Nashville and the region. But we've got to take care and show that we are the place where songwriters and musicians can come to and be successful.
Or else another place will pop up.
And that's already happening. Huntsville just hired a music officer position in their mayor's office. So you've got cities around us that are starting to nibble at our heels to take a little piece of what we've got. And if we don't protect that songwriters and musicians can come here to make it, we're losing a big piece of who Nashville is.
Yeah. I played somewhere in Huntsville. I forgot the name of the place.
Yeah.
It's a big auditorium or something.
It's cool.
Oh, well.
Yeah.
Anyway,
Yeah.
So let's get back to your political thing for you're running for office for
for one of the five at-large positions.
Right.
So yeah.
And that's like way in the future, right?
Well, it's next August. So one of the things I love about Nashville and Metro, I wouldn't run if I didn't fully believe in Metro, the very first combination city-county government in the United States back in '63, is that we are on the odd years for our elections. So like obviously we have an election coming up here on November 8th. That's our state and federal general election, right?
Right.
Thank goodness that Nashville's not embedded into that two-party machinated mess, right? That we have our own election on odd years so that we can just focus on Nashville issues.
So there's no, these council people aren't Democrats or Republicans?
We're nonpartisan. That's the other great thing is that, we can put that kind of partisan stuff aside and we can just focus like a laser on Nashville issues, So the at-large positions are generally because you're not in the weeds in your local communities to deal with planning, zoning, codes issues. My trash was missed, the dog across the street is loud, and all that kind of stuff on a neighborhood level that you do. An at-large position kind of should look at things from more broader perspective, fiduciary, other policy kind of work.
So where is this District 15? That's Donaldson?
I'm the Donaldson Opryland guy, right? So everything north of the airport. My district largely supports the airport because I've got all the hotels that support them. I've got the 30th largest hotel in the world with Opryland. And then, one of the cool, unique things about...
Why is the parking so much in Opryland?
The parking?
Last time I went, it was $20.
Well,
more now?
those of us that live there know how to get the free parking. All right, I mean, it's no secret. You park at Opry Mills, you walk over. So there you go.
Oh, really?
If you're there just to visit, yeah. So, anyways, but you can do that.
I'll be doing that.
It's pretty.
Don't tell
pretty
anybody.
easy. Yeah, no, don't tell anybody. Oh wait, oops.
Okay, let's talk before we're running out of time. Let's talk about this organization right here, NECAT.
Sure.
Now you've been very active with this. We just got taken over by the library or something like that.
It's a great move.
Because now we don't have to worry about the money anymore.
You always have to worry about the money, but I mean,
the people are going to get. Like the guy running this place. Cameron's going to be able to get paid.
He's under library now instead of instead of just NECAT. But there's lots of synergies there. Library has the capacity to be able to manage NECAT, and one of the coolest things.
Well, whose idea was this whole thing? Did you start this?
I mean, I've been involved in the conversations and whatnot for sure.
First guy said library?
I think that was a discussion between the two department heads. So NECAT used to be under the IT department because I think largely. When cable was exploding in the late 80s and early 90s, I think it became more about the complexity of the delivery of the content. So you put it under IT, they negotiate the cable access fees, that helps drive, the funding for NECAT. But 30 plus years now, it's more about the quality of the content, right? And so it made natural sense to move it under an organization and a department that is all about, quality of content. Libraries these days are not just about places for books. They're technology centers. They're places where families can go and have all sorts of different kind of programming for teens and for families and for seniors. Research. I mean, gosh, libraries do so much for the community. So I'm really excited about the opportunity for NECAT to be managed by a department that is going to help cultivate the quality of the content for everybody. So I think there's a lot of potential. And of course, in Donaldson, what I'm potentially excited about is we also have to find them a new home. Right here at Nashville State, we know that they can only be here for so much longer.
The lease is up.
The lease is up. It's time to find them a new home, and so I've been involved in that conversation.
I did the very first show in the studio.
Did you really?
In the year 2000 it was.
That's fantastic. Yeah.
I did it with a girl named Deborah Allen.
Wow, that's cool.
She probably doesn't remember, but it was the very first show. In this studio.
But like everybody else, Nashville State is growing, and so they can use the space, and so I've loved being just part of the conversation to help support NECAT and ensure that they have a bright future, which they do absolutely. I mean, content is king, especially in this digital age, right? So let's drive it, man.
This is it. This is the content,
right? Yeah.
Jeff Syracuse and Jesse Goldberg, the content.
The content kings. Right. All right, that sounds nice.
So do you ever get back to Buffalo anymore?
I do.
Do you have family there?
Most family is there. I've got uncles who own a couple of restaurants there. And
Are you a Bills fan?
I am.
Really?
It's hard to be a Bills fan. They're good this year. I know. It makes me a little nervous because every year when they start looking good and whatnot, which has been pretty consistent lately. But growing up.
Scott Norwood was my favorite player.
Oh gosh, growing up in the early '90s, then when those 4 years in a row. I think by that fourth year, man, we were just frothing at the mouth and just kind of oh man, it's like 4 years in a row. What team has ever done that before, right? And then loses 4 years in a row. So
somewhere I heard I was watching the debate, and I saw that somebody talked about the Buffalo wanted to move into someplace else, but they're going to build a new stadium.
They're getting a new stadium. Yeah,
a new stadium.
It's
right.
new stadium discussions there, new stadium discussions here. So yeah, that's the hot topic in both of those cities for sure. So yeah.
Well, anyway, we just got a few minutes left, so
sure.
So what do you want to say in the last few minutes?
Yeah, well, you know, Nashville just can't become a victim of its own success. Growth is good, you know. And where we are headed is got great opportunities, but we cannot lose what has made us what we are. And more and more, I find the two hats that I wear in both my jobs, they're slowly kind of almost merging in a way, right? And so I want to make sure that this city values the music industry and the creatives that create it and support it, and then all the various aspects of the ecosystem. That's it. It feels like a calling. It does. You know, I'm just as passionate about this as what I've been doing in Donaldson over the past really 20 years and 7 years, almost going to be 8 years in that seat. So it's if you want to be a truly great international city, culture's got to be at the heart of it, and we have the opportunity to do that, but we've got to come together and look for policies and tools and programs to ensure that we are proactively supporting creatives to be able to thrive here, not just survive here, but thrive here.
Yeah. Well, we'll see what happens.
Right. Well, and so it goes.
And so it goes. Anyway, it's been good having you on the show.
Thanks, Jesse.
You were here before, right?
You know, in fact, yes, I have been here. And I think back in 2013 when I was on your show, that's when I actually announced that I was running for District 15.
I started your career.
Yeah, there you go. You did.
Started your career. You're the
man.
reason why
you got it out in the world for me, so I appreciate that. So here I am again announcing the next potential stage for me.
Right. Well, I got to get working on it. I got to form a relationship with somebody at ASCAP.
You do.
Give me some money for some of these views.
Absolutely. You've earned it. Yeah, that's exactly right. Yeah.
I mean, I got a guy that does, I've got so many videos on YouTube.
Nice. Yeah.
It's like,
it's your career. You got to monetize
I got millions of views, and I got to somehow get money for it.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah.
Yeah. Oh, well, anyway, we got to get going.
Yeah, cool.
Anyway, my name's Jesse Goldberg, and this is Jeff Syracuse, and he's a very big friend of this station, NECAT, and we'll be back next week with another edition of the show.
Thanks, Jesse.